the bridge to recovery for youth here in our community. This year, we are doing our third annual coat drive for kids. The theme is every kid needs a coat. Every time you give a child a coat, you are giving them more than warmth. Cold days are around the corner and we can help. So we are doing a coat drive from October the 17th through December the 12th, 2020. The coat drive drop-off will be at our office at 912 College Street here in Oxford, North Carolina. Also, you can drop off coats at the Granville County Chamber of Commerce, which is 124 Hillsborough Street, Oxford, North Carolina. You can also contact us at 919-339-4563 if you would like to collect coats and then have us pick them up. We're happy to do that as well. You can also make monetary donations to Drug Free Coalition of Granville County through Cash App, $Team DFC, or you can mail checks and money orders to our business at 912 College Street. We are seeking to collect 200 coats, new coats, hats, scarves, and gloves for children and teenagers in our community. And again, we thank you in advance for your support.
It's the New Music Update, highlighting what's new in Christian music each week. Presented by NewReleaseToday.com.
I'm Jeremiah St. James, and this is what's new in Christian music. Out today, Brandon Murphy's second new single in 2022 called Father.
Father, can you hear us crying, even if we don't know? Father.
Also new, Madison Line Records worship leader joins Stephen McWhirter for a powerful new single, Hope Fanthauser, If It Wasn't For You. Both Brandon and Hope's singles are available and streaming everywhere now.
It's what's happening each week in Christian music. New Music Update. Presented by NewReleaseToday.com.
Welcome back, everyone. Today is Wednesday, November the 2nd, 2022. I'm Ryan Hill.
I'm John Galantis.
And you're listening to Clearview Today with Dr. Abadan Shah, the daily show that engages mind and heart for the gospel of Jesus Christ. You can find us online at clearviewtodayshow.com. Or if you have a question for Dr. Shah or anything you'd like to write in and suggest that we talk about, send us a text at 252-582-5028. You can also email us at contact@clearviewtodayshow.com. You can follow Dr. Shah online on his website, abadanshaw.com. And you can support us financially at clearviewtodayshow.com. You'll find a link there to give. And every donation that you make goes not only to supporting this show, but to supporting countless other opportunities for sending out the gospel of Jesus Christ.
That's right.
We treasure this partnership with you all, and we are so thankful for the gifts that we have already received. We're so thankful for those partners who have stepped up and said, hey, we love what you're doing. We want to be a part of it, not just consume the media, but we want to help get this message out, because that's what this is.
I think that's a huge thing that you just mentioned, is that we're not just consumers. You know, we can be consumers in other ways. Like when we go home, look at TV, look at movies, you know, play video games, whatever, we're consumer. That's just for us.
Mm-hmm.
This Christian media especially, and especially this platform that we're using, is not just for your consumption. It is to help benefit you and to help benefit all the people listening, but it's also for you to take this message and spread it. You know, that's what Jesus called us to do. He didn't want us just to get all this spiritual fulfillment and then just keep it to ourselves.
Right.
What do you say? You're not you're the light. No, what is the one where he said you don't put the lamp under the basket?
Right. No one lights a lamp and puts it under a basket.
That's it. I tripped a little on my delivery there, but hey, it is what it is.
That's right. Absolutely. And we want to remind you before the show starts about the upcoming elections on November the 8th. You've heard us talk about this, and we're going to keep reminding you because it is so important to get out there and vote. We want to keep this conversation going until election day, just to remind you, encourage you, go vote your convictions, vote biblical values. If you have any questions about who is running for what, we would love to be able to offer some resources for you. You can send us a text, 252-582-5028, or you can email us at contact@clearviewtodayshow.com.
And today's the 2nd, right?
Yes.
So I think for the next what is that, 6 days,
Mhm.
all of our discussions are going to be tailored around kind of that political realm, just to kind of keep the discussion alive and just keep you guys understanding that this is your civic duty. This is something that as Christians, we are called to do. This is not something that we want to it's not just fun conversation. This is something that we expect you guys to go and do something about it. So that's why from now until the 8th, all of our conversations, all of our discussions are kind of tailored for this particular topic.
That's right. And we want to be a resource for you. So reach out to us any way that you can. Lots of ways to contact us. Follow us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook. You can find Clearview Today Show there. We want to be a resource for you to the upcoming elections.
Right.
John, how are you doing today, my friend?
Fine.
Okay.
That's it.
That's it.
We always ask about me. How are you?
I'm okay. I feel like I'm still kind of, in recovery mode. We had the fall retreat not long ago with our student ministry here. So
pretend like I don't know what that is. What is the fall retreat?
Okay. So the fall retreat is like,
because I actually don't. No, I'm just kidding.
It's a mini weekend getaway for our students in 6th through 12th grade here at the church.
Okay.
So we have host homes set up. People step up and volunteer their homes to open it up to, a small group of teenagers and an adult leader. They go and stay in host homes for the weekend. We've got a service project Saturday morning. And then actually this past Saturday, we went to Defy Gravity on Saturday night.
Nice.
So a big trampoline park. Went there, jumped around, had a good time. And the whole weekend was themed around learning what it means to be set free.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So it was a lot of fun. We had almost 40 teenagers there. So it was a great weekend.
40?
Yeah. 40
teenagers at Defy Gravity. Did you rent the whole place?
No, but we probably should have.
Wow.
We were a big crowd. You saw their eyes when we walked in the door. They were kind of like,
oh no. It's like Armageddon walking through the door.
We're going to bring Dr. Shaw in just a few minutes for today's episode topic. Yesterday, we talked about, this issue of homosexuality.
Right.
Today, we're continuing that discussion on sexuality and gender issues, but today we're specifically talking about transgenderism.
Yeah.
We want to be sensitive when we're talking about this stuff. We want to be compassionate when we're talking about this stuff, but we've got to bring an element of truth here. We've got to stand on what God's word says as truth.
Well, God's word is beautiful in that way because it is compassionate and it is full of mercy and it's full of second chances and it's full of forgiveness and healing, but that's never apart from truth.
Right.
And that truth has to be confronted first, and then mercy and compassion always comes alongside. But to have one without the other, it never works. And I think that's the beautiful thing about God.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to bring Dr. Shaw into the studio in just a few minutes to dive into this discussion. If, like we said yesterday, I know that people's minds are firing. Maybe this issue is hitting a little closer to home for you.
Yeah.
Maybe you know someone or have a loved one who's struggling with this. Send us those questions or issues you'd like for us to talk about at 252-582-5028. Or again, you can email us at contact@clearviewtodayshow.com.
I like I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I did want to say this. I like that you said that. And here's why I like it. Because I think for us, I know personally for me, I don't have anyone in my life immediately that struggles with this issue.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easy to talk about it.
Right.
For others who are struggling with this, it's not as easy.
Mm-hmm.
So I do like that you prefaced it with that. And I thank you for doing that because it is important, I think, for us to understand, okay, I'm not immediately struggling with this. So the things that we say, we do want to be careful and we want to say it correctly. We want to say it and make sure it's coming from a biblical foundation, not just our opinions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we're going to go grab Dr. Shaw and we'll be back in just a few minutes.
If you haven't already, be sure to check out Dr. Shaw's book, Changing the Goalpost of New Testament Textual Criticism. Before the 1960s, the goal of New Testament textual criticism was singular, to retrieve the original text of the New Testament. Since then, the goalpost has incrementally shifted away from the original text to retrieving any text or many texts of the New Testament. Some scholars have even concluded that the original text is hopelessly lost and cannot be retrieved with any confidence or accuracy. If that's the case, how can we claim that the Bible is inerrant? To answer these questions, make sure you order a copy of Dr. Shaw's book. That title again is Changing the Goalpost of New Testament Textual Criticism. You can pick up your copy on Amazon right now and let us know how it's helped you by emailing us at info@clearviewbc.org. You can also support our ministry here at Clearview by visiting us at clearviewbc.org/give. Thanks for listening. Now back to the show.
Welcome back to Clearview Today with Dr. Abadan Shah, the show that engages the mind and heart for the gospel of Jesus Christ. You can visit us online at clearviewtodayshow.com or send us a text at 252-582-5028. Before we start the discussion for today, we got a lot of responses from yesterday's episode about bringing in Dr. Shaw's message on homosexuality. And in that same vein, in that same series, he also preached another message on transgenderism, because while those issues are linked, they are separate issues. They are unique in how we approach them and how we think about them. So we're going to do the same thing we did yesterday. We're going to play for you a portion of a message Dr. Shaw preached related on this issue of transgenderism. And again, like we said yesterday, if you would like to hear the entire message, you can always find all of our past messages, all of Dr. Shaw's past messages on our website, clearviewbc.org. All of his past sermons are there. Feel free to go check them out, listen to them, watch them, share them with your loved ones. You can also find all of his sermon notes, his manuscripts on his blog at abadanshah.com. Let's listen into that message.
Our society and our culture are increasingly trying to neutralize gender identities. Increasingly trying to, just the way Ryan mentioned, by the way, he designed this so cleverly, that there's no distinction, devoid of all color. There is no male, there's no female, and now we're headed to this neutrality, but both scripturally and scientifically, transgenderism is unnatural, inappropriate, and sinful, just like homosexuality. We are to be compassionate towards those who are struggling with gender dysphoria. But at the same time, we are also to stand firm in our conviction of biblical gender distinctions. And I want you to hear very carefully. Compassion without the gospel of Jesus Christ is collaboration. Now the blood is on your hands as well. Compassion is great. But the compassion that does not bring Jesus Christ, that leaves Jesus out, and it's only about, I love you and I'm there for you. And I know the church and people there are judgmental and hypocrites, but that's not me. You are from the pit of hell. And the gospel of Jesus Christ is not in you. So compassion, great, we need it. But you better bring the gospel very quickly.
You know, if I could take a line from that clip, compassion without the gospel of Jesus Christ is collaboration.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm not a bumper sticker guy, but I would put that on every car. I would put that on every
Clearview
shirt.
Today bumper stickers
Compassion.
on sale now at Clearview Today Show.
Without the gospel of Jesus Christ is collaboration. I love that point because sometimes I feel like we err on the side of an overabundance of what we determine as mercy.
Yeah.
Like we just throw compassion, just dump compassion on people. Love, 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 love. And we forget that there is a truth to be maintained. There's a truth to be upheld.
Right.
It's God's truth.
Well, I appreciate that language from you and from you, because I think both of those sermons, the one we listened to yesterday, and by the way, if you guys didn't go listen to the full sermon or this full sermon, make sure that you do. We'll leave the links in the show notes of this podcast, and we'll put it. Where else do we leave our links? We leave them. Is that really just the show notes?
That's really just the show notes. And we can. I'll go and let you know if you're listening on the radio. It is recreated part 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And those sermons are available on our church website, clearviewbc.org. You can find every past sermon of Dr. Shaw's there, as well as Dr. Shaw's blog, abadanshah.com. All of the notes from his sermon are there. The entire manuscript is there. Go back and read that because it is so vital to not only what we're talking about today, but to our culture today.
Right. And if you're joining us for the first time, by the way, Dr. Abadan Shah, he's a PhD in New Testament textual criticism, professor at Carolina University, author, full-time pastor, and the host of today's show. But what I was saying was I loved that sermon and the sermon that we listened to yesterday because there is such truth. And it's not truth to hurt people. It's truth it's truth and mercy put together.
Right.
And that's really the only place that godly truth comes from.
Absolutely. And I will emphasize that in this episode as well, that when we talk about homosexuality being a sin or this whole gender identity debate being contrary to the word of God, it is not coming from a Bible thumping place,
right?
Or like in your face. And in fact, I don't even make jokes about it in my message because they are insulting to people. So I will never do that. But at the same time, to then say I endorse you or I celebrate your lifestyle. No, I don't have to do that.
Right.
And that's something I appreciate so much about these two messages, especially, is that you brought such an element of, and these messages are back from 2021, I believe.
That's right.
But you brought such an element of both truth and mercy and holding those in balance with one another.
Yes.
It's so vital because sometimes oftentimes we err on one side or the other. We lean too far one direction or the other.
We don't do anybody any good if we kind of swing with that pendulum on one extreme or the other.
Right.
One extreme is to just be loud and obnoxious,
Right.
and make fun of people and those kind of things. And yes, there are people who do that, but I think sometimes we hear, oh, there are a lot of people like that. That's not true.
Right.
It's very hard to find people who will be like that. Of course, there are people who are hateful and mean and those kind of things. I'll never downplay that or ever say that's okay, because it's not. It's wrong. It's evil to be hateful and mean to people, no matter what their lifestyle or what their choice. But at the same time, the other extreme, which is, oh, we're just going to go along with you. We just love you. And, Jesus just called us to love, and that's all we're going to do. That is a huge disservice,
Right.
on the same level as making fun of people or belittling them or talking hatefully towards them. It's on the same level.
Right.
In my book, it's on the same level, because now going along with it, you are dishonoring your Savior Jesus Christ.
That's exactly right.
And you are disobeying the word of God. You're not helping anybody with that.
Right. It seems to me that, like I said, and I said this in the last episode, but it seems that the conversation has switched. It doesn't even seem, it's pretty obvious to anyone listening to the conversation over the past few years, maybe even over the past decade, that the conversation has switched from tolerance to acceptance to now even celebration, that you have to accept it. You have to celebrate that this is who I am. And not only on the homosexuality front, but really even this gender dysphoria, this transgender movement that's coming out. It's that you're this brave individual who's standing up against the establishment. You're fighting the patriarchy or the religious elite or whatever. And now it almost seems that Christians and people in church are saying, you know what, this is the way the culture is going. I have to jump on board with it. Otherwise, I'm going to be thought less of, judged. I'm not sure what the
irrelevant.
Yeah, I guess.
I think at the heart of it is fear.
Yeah.
Those who are trying to be relevant versus those who are just not saying anything. In both cases, at the heart of it is fear. Whether it's a fear of acceptance or lack of it, or fear of some kind of repercussions, it's always fear.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then at least those in ministry, I would say, find something else to do.
Yeah, that's
Because
true.
you're no longer standing for the truth of God.
100% agree.
And of course, once again, for those who may have just jumped in, is truth with compassion.
Exactly. Exactly. There has to be compassion. But at the same time, like you said in the beginning, compassion means nothing if there's no truth, because we're both selling ourselves out together.
That's right.
I'm lowering myself down to your level. I think one of the things that I really appreciate you, Dr. Shah, is that there is this realness, and it's not a realness like that, like you said, like that brash, obnoxious, transgender, Adam wasn't made for Eve and Steve and all that stuff.
Yeah.
There's never any of that, because these are real people.
Right.
And I know that in your mind, and even the way that it comes out in the sermons, these are people who are struggling.
Right.
I don't think anybody, well, no, maybe not anybody, but this is a struggle, and this is a real thing that's going on. And so our goal is to bring the gospel of Jesus Christ to those people.
Right.
Right.
And the greatest act of love is showing dignity to people.
Amen.
And I would go one step further. If you really want to show dignity to people, then see if you can take them to heaven with you.
Ooh,
Wow.
Right?
man.
We need
Right?
to put that on. That needs to be your
That
best
needs to be
bumper
a
sticker
sticker.
right there.
Yeah.
So we have the same mentality when we are reaching people in the community, whether they are homeless or people living in rough situations or rough lifestyles or lifestyles contrary to the word of God. If you truly want to show them dignity, then think about them not being in heaven.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds simplistic, but it is the truth.
Yeah.
I see people that way, or I try to see people that way. I want this person to be in heaven. Forget about what they're wearing right now. Forget about how they're acting. Forget about their lifestyle or whatever they're on or smoking.
Yeah.
I want to see that person in heaven.
Yeah.
Now there's dignity, which means now I'm going to do whatever I can to share the gospel. And just for those who are wondering, when it comes to sharing the gospel, I don't begin with, are you a homosexual?
Right. Right.
Are you struggling
Mhm.
with gender dysphoria? No, of course not. We begin with, hey, have you ever given your heart to Jesus Christ? Do you
Amen.
know what he can do
Mhm.
for you? Have you ever prayed?
Mhm.
Do you have a church? These are places where we begin and to share the gospel. So I hope everybody knows
Right.
our gospel presentation doesn't begin with hateful words.
Right.
Absolutely.
I mean, it doesn't begin with any specific sin.
Right.
It never does.
No.
I've never heard any, I've never heard any gospel presentation that goes, are you a liar? Are you a cheat?
Are you
a
struggling with
fraud?"
greed?
Yeah.
Here's the answer to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, maybe some of those cheesy fake $20 bills from
Oh gosh.
the tracks.
Yeah, the
they
tracks.
don't work.
that don't work.
This
I
is
think
this
they're
is
meant
a
for
rabbit.
Christians.
This is a rabbit trail, but I used to wait tables before starting here at Clearview.
I know.
I got a couple of those as a waiter. Huge.
Was it like
slap in the
$100 bill
face.
that said, "Are you disappointed?"
Mhm.
Yeah, don't
Yep.
be. The
And
gospel
then
of
the
Jesus
worst
Christ.
part, the worst part about that was they still didn't leave a tip.
Oh,
That was the tip.
That was their tip.
That was the worst
Oh.
part.
And then they
Just,
justify
that's
by,
a sidebar.
hey,
but
listen, eternal salvation's worth way more than my money, so I'll
Uh-huh.
keep that in my pocket. and
That-
leave that for you.
that's
That's a
Don't do
rabbit
that.
trail. That's a sidebar for me.
Yeah.
But I did like in yesterday's episode that you read that passage from Genesis where it said God created man and woman in his own image, because those roles are very specific.
Mhm.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so also when you go into the New Testament, 1 Corinthians 11:3, Paul says, "But I want you to know that the head of every man is Christ. The head of woman is man." Not every woman is man,
Right.
right? Or every woman is every man, but the head of woman is man, her husband, and the head of Christ is God. Now, again, we don't want to get into all those issues because we get into the complementarian, egalitarian, all those issues. We're not talking about that. That may be a topic for another day.
episode.
I believe God has called a man to lead,
Right.
right?
Right.
So, having said that, in this situation, when we say gender doesn't matter, we are either negating or neutralizing the differences, and in the process, we are negating or neutralizing the Trinity.
Right.
Mm.
100% agree.
Right. I mean, that's what it says right here. Let me read that again. The head of every man is Christ. The head of woman is man. The head of Christ is God. So the two persons of the Trinity are mentioned. Holy Spirit is not, because in this particular verse, that was not brought up.
Right.
Not necessary. But if you take that and apply it to the whole gender dysphoria or gender identity issues, we are trying to neutralize or even trying to negate the Trinity.
You said something in yesterday's episode that really hit me because I had never considered it in those terms before. But it's not even. And yesterday we talked about homosexuality. Today we're talking about transgenderism. But
Two different subjects, of
Yes.
course. Yeah.
two different subjects, but related in the sense that they are sexual sin, and it is related to our view of God. And you said yesterday, it's not just saying, God, you made a mistake, but God, you are a mistake.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was powerful.
Yes.
And
very
that,
powerful.
that changes the way that we approach this.
Mhm.
That changes the stakes that are on the line here, because this isn't just what I believe about, how we were created or, what gender identity is. This is affecting my very view of God.
Now take it to the 10 Commandments. When it
Mhm.
talks about do not make any image, we immediately go to the idols, right?
Right.
And that's true. We need to go to the idols. But it was not always just about the idols. It was also about the distortions of the truth of who God is, the
Mhm.
identity of God. So our identity is tied to his identity. When we begin to distort our identity, in a sense, we're saying the original is a mistake, because
Yeah.
we're made in the image of God.
Right.
Mhm.
He is the original. We are the image, right? So we're saying, hey, you up there, we don't believe you're accurate.
Right.
Mhm.
Now,
Right.
God takes that very seriously enough to put it in the 10 Commandments,
Exactly.
right up on top.
And that's I think one of those logical fallacies that people, like to throw out, is that, well, it's I'm not hurting you. I'm not hurting anybody by claiming that I'm a woman. I'm not asking you to date me or to whatever. This is who I am inside. And so you have no right to infringe on that. But it's not just between you and I. It is a reflection of God and who
Right.
God is and what you think of God.
And in a sense, I'm okay with that, because that's the freedom of living in this great nation, that
Right.
you can do that,
Right.
right? So, and I know some people may say, well, wait, that's not, no, that's part of the freedom, as long
Mhm.
as you're not hurting somebody. But what has happened in America in the past few decades, it has gone from being a freedom to now being for you to even think this is not right is hate speech.
Yeah.
Or for you to say anything. Or if you do not celebrate this, then you must be a bigot.
That's true.
Or you must be a hateful person. And that's not true at all.
Yeah. No. What this is, near and dear to my heart. A lot of times people focus on teenagers who are struggling with this.
Right.
In that, 12 to 19-year-old age range. How do we address transgenderism in our teens, specifically related to like this high suicide rate?
Right.
How do we approach that? What healing and hope can we bring, especially in that teenage age range?
Right. Well, to start
Hello,
with,
I am Tanisha Jordan, one of the co-founders here from Drug Free Coalition of Granville County, where we provide prevention, hope, recovery, education, and advocacy, the bridge to recovery for youth here in our community. This year, we are doing our third annual coat drive for kids. The theme is every kid needs a coat. Every time you give a child a coat, you are giving them more than warmth. Cold days are around the corner, and we can help. So we are doing a coat drive from October the 17th through December the 12th, 2020. The coat drive drop-off will be at our office at 912 College Street here in Oxford, North Carolina. Also, you can drop off coats at the Granville County Chamber of Commerce, which is 124 Hillsborough Street, Oxford, North Carolina. You can also contact us at 919-339-4563. If you would like to collect coats and then have us pick them up, we are happy to do that as well. You can also make monetary donations to Drug Free Coalition of Granville County through Cash App, $Team DFC, or you can mail checks or money orders to our business at 912 College Street. We are seeking to collect 200 coats, new coats, hats, scarves, and gloves for children and teenagers in our community. And again, we thank you in advance for your support.
Hey, we made it easy for you here on Next Door Radio and nextdoorradio.com. Available now by way of the Google and Apple Store is the Next Door Radio app. Anywhere you want to go, you can take Next Door with you. All the local talk programs, all local sports, and a great mix of 70s, 80s classic rock you can now take anywhere you want to go by download the Next Door Radio app today. Available Google and Apple stores.
How you doing, Granville County? I am Vance Johnson. I'm running for sheriff, and I'd really like your support and your vote. I've got 30 years of law enforcement experience, and I think it's important that we look at that experience and how it relates. I have the right experience, and I am the right choice. Please get out and vote. It is election time and starts on October the 20th, and we will see you at the polls. Thank you.
Paid for by the committee to elect Vance Johnson for Granville County Sheriff.
This is Lewis Bowling with another segment of Looking Back into Granville County History. T.G. Bullock, O.F. Bullock, H.A. Stem, W.J. Stem, W.H. Jones, C. Hopkins, and W.T. Stem gave a combined $1,800 to get the railroad depot built in Stem. The first train came through Stem in 1888. The trains coming into Stem proved a big attraction, especially from the 1890s into the early 1900s. W.J. Webb remembered the trains when he was a young boy. The trains coming made the biggest attraction. Everybody in town and all visitors went down to see the train come around the mountain when she come. It was a new thing and a big thing. We heard her rumble across Tar River Bridge and knew the meaning of every whistle on up the line. And by the time she gave the station blow for Stem and the headlight broke from around the bend, we were right there at the depot to see her come to a stop. And there we remained until the captain hollered, "All aboard." This is Lewis Bowling with another segment of Looking Back into Granville County History.
And welcome to Local Talk here on Next Door Radio, nextdoorradio.com, and the Next Door Radio app. My name is Trace Nod. This is recorded for presentation at this time. You can go back to our website at nextdoorradio.com, go under the program and recordings tab. Everything that we've ever done will be right there. We have a special guest in our studio today. Pretty excited about it. If you ask my wife, who joins me here today, how are you, Jen?
I'm good. I'm excited to be part of this interview. This is so cool.
Mr. Gary Oshuno joins us here. He's with Apple Box Media. You doing good today?
Very good.
Yeah, excited to have you, my friend.
Thank you.
Kind of looking a little bit, you've done, and you said you've been a part of the industry for a little over, 31 years. 31 years. You've done movies that again, my son was born to one of the movies that you've done, which is Talladega Nights, which is crazy. So talk a little bit before we kind of dive deep into the history of why you got into it, why you're doing what you're doing now. Let's really introduce you as only you could. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Gary Yoshino, Applebox Media. 31 years of making movies in Hollywood as a cameraman before I moved out here about 3 years ago, actually. And
He's Oxford's claim to fame.
That's right.
Yes.
Well,
yes. He's seriously famous, y'all.
So I've met Gary at a kind of a meetup group in Wake Forest, and appreciate Dennis and them for connecting us with this interview, because when me and you first met each other, I was like, man, that's pretty cool. So when you reached out and said, hey, let's get an interview together, I immediately said, absolutely. So I asked you before, are you allowed to say any stories in your days in the movie industry? Of course, you've done movies like Talladega Nights. You've done The Grandma's Boy. You've worked at this TV series Barbershop, U2. I mean, all sorts. And I can go down. You have 152 credits. Is that correct?
Wow.
115
credits.
And then actually 6 in animation, Saturday morning cartoons, when I was still trying to break into camera, doing camera work in Hollywood. So
wow.
Yeah.
We do here at the radio station actually have Saturday morning cartoons from 7 to 10 on by radio. But that's pretty cool. So I know my wife is excited to potentially get on the microphone here and ask you some questions. Take it away, Ben.
Oh, well, I asked you before this interview, but I just kind of want to hear more about coming from Hollywood, being there for so long, how you ended up in North Carolina and what you've been doing since you came here.
Okay. So I guess it's a good local story. I came out here in 2005, 2006, around there. I know the movie came out in 2006, but I came out with the camera crew for a movie called Talladega Nights. I was on the racing and stunt unit, so spent all my time every day on racetracks at Charlotte and Rockingham. I think Rockingham was already off the circuit at that point. It was a test track. I think it still is. And then, so we shot a bunch of basically everything you saw in the movie. That was all the car racing, car flipping, all the stunt work. I think we only shot one major stunt. We shot right away the first week in Talladega on the Talladega Speedway there. That was what we call the double cannon roll, which was the last crash in the movie where they both flipped.
Yeah.
And then they started running on foot. So we had multiple cameras on that stunt. We were only there for about a week. Then we packed up and got into planes and flew to Charlotte, and we did the rest of the movie in Charlotte and Rockingham.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was all stunts all the time.
Yeah.
That's so cool. And what an honor for you to work with those big names too. Were y'all laughing like constantly at these guys?
Yeah, well, I did 3 movies with Will Ferrell, Talladega Nights being the last one. I started with him on Old School.
Mm-hmm.
That was my first movie with him, and he was the standout of the people to work with on that movie. Just a really cool, regular guy. He's not very Hollywood. I don't think he even participates in the Hollywood community. He doesn't live in Hollywood. He's just like a regular guy. If you didn't know he was a movie star, you would just think of him like your next door neighbor.
Yeah.
You could have a beer with him in your garage and BS with him, and you'd never know. He's just a funny guy.
Yeah.
So cool.
And but when the cameras are rolling, he just turns it on, and he is just hysterical.
Oh my God.
Really nice guy.
Again, Mr. Garrett joins us here by way of our in studio today, recorded presentation at this time. This is Local Talk. My name is Trey Snyder. Of course, my beautiful wife, Jamie, joins me here as well. So kind of go back in the beginning of it. How did you really kind of get involved with production and all the background work? How did they kind of get involved in that?
Well, breaking into Hollywood is not as easy as it might seem. I know that people come from all over the country, all over the world to work in Hollywood. Most people are, want to be in front of the camera. Other people want to be directors and producers and writers. And I'm just, I was a camera crew person. I went to film school. I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area, across the bridge from San Francisco. And then actually, funny thing was they ended up, while I was in San Rafael, they moved a company called ILM, which was George Lucas's special effects company.
Wow.
Lucasfilm was also located there. And so I was able to see the actual effects. I drove by it all the time. It was just kind of a known company in the neighborhood. And that was, I started out when I was 13 years old. I saw Star Wars when it came out in 1977, and I fell in love with the idea of making that happen. Working in Hollywood, and when those ships came roaring across the screen at the beginning, I was like, I got to do this. Yeah,
This is it.
I have to do this.
Yes.
And that was funny because it wasn't like, oh, I'm just a fan. It was like, I want to make those. So I really, from an early age, I devoted my extracurricular learning to photography and cinematography and reading about special effects and how movies were made. And it was all, outside of school programs because they didn't teach that stuff. So ended up going to my local junior college to save money to go to university, and got my AA degree in communications and mass media, and moved to LA to finish film school, to Cal State Northridge Film School, got my degree, my BA there. And pretty much right upon graduating, just started trying to break in and meet people. And it was a lot of phone calls. It was like I would get one lead from like my brother. He said, "Oh, call this guy. He's kind of works in the film business." So called him. He gave me a list of like 10 other people to call, and each person didn't want to help. They could give me numbers of other people to call till I finally met one guy who actually wanted to talk to me.
Nice.
So
it just takes one, doesn't it?
It took one.
Yeah.
That's all it took. And that relationship bloomed. We ended up becoming best friends, and we're, he called me one time to work basically for the first time. He says, "Okay, well, I have a project. We need some help. You'll have to work for free, and we'll see what you're made of, in person." This was the first time I actually got to meet him. And it was for Madonna Express Yourself music video.
What?
And it was, so it was a pretty big project. David Fincher was the director, that was huge, huge. It was like a feature film, that size of the scope of that music video. I ended up hitting it off with Scott Steele was the guy who gave me my break. And the camera department ended up paying me out of their pockets.
Wow. So you did get paid.
I did get paid,
Nice.
but
You
not
just-
officially paid by the company. And then they took me on, they trained me from that point on. And the rest is history. I started my career with those guys, and I owe my career to those guys.
That's amazing. Well, and now you're here in North Carolina, and you've got all this, incredible expertise in filming and photography. So what are you hoping to bring with your skills now that you're in North Carolina? Well, I guess you've been doing that. So if you talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I started the company about a year ago under a different name. And it was too drone centric, basically, because I had gotten my FAA commercial drone pilot's license. And so decided to start a drone services company. And I ended up really enjoying making videos more than just flying the drones. It was funny because in the drone school I went to, it was called Drone Aviate, and they were based out of Sacramento. So I had to keep flying back to California to take these classes. And I noticed right away when I took the cinematography class, the drone cinematography class, it was interesting because everybody in the class was a drone pilot, whereas I was a cinematographer.
Yeah.
And the way we flew the drones was completely different.
Sure.
And I was using the drone as a tool to capture cinematic shots the way I knew cinematic shots to be. And but the other people were flying the drones to show off their drone skills, which was completely different. And our assignment in the class was to actually produce a video. And the class was held at this beautiful winery and in Auburn, California. And so we were supposed to produce a up to 3-minute video, a spot for the winery. And it was so much fun. And it was beyond, for me, it was beyond just the drones. I actually took out my iPhone and did shots with that, and I cut it all together. And it was a night and day difference between what I was doing, what other people had put together. And anyways, I did that, and my wife saw how much I enjoyed rather doing the videos than just piloting drones and doing drone service. So she says, why don't we just change the company to being a video production company? Because it's what you know, it's what you're educated in, it's what your experience is in. And she was right. And I said, yeah, let's do that. So we changed the name from DroneFlex Imaging to Applebox Media. And that was as of like last year, September. And trying to drum up business, basically cold start. I didn't know anybody. Nobody knew me. Nobody knew what my company was. There are other video companies here and in Raleigh and all these places that have years of experience producing videos. And not to knock them, I just, when I would look at their videos, I would go to their websites and, research what my competition was. I think I set a bar that was far and above what they were already producing as an experienced media company. Because my bar is Hollywood.
Sure.
So the cinematography, the editing, the storytelling that I learned is the forefront of my company. It's paramount. Is telling the company's story that I'm doing the videos for, producing short videos for anywhere from social media videos, professional level social media videos, as opposed to somebody's shooting their selfie videos. And I'm not knocking that. That's part of social media video making, of course. But I want to have another tier where it's like, you want a professional spot? I can produce a professional looking spot. And so I'm doing that in Google Ads and website videos, things like that.
Mr. Gary joins us here. He's with Applebox Media. This is part of our local talk program. My name is Trey Snoud. She is Jamie Snoud, my wife. And he, of course, Applebox Media. You can find them on their website, which is applebox-media.com. So what has been the most challenging part? Again, and I love talking to local businesses when it comes to really diving in, because we took a chance. There was a lot of prayer. There's still a lot of prayer. We've been doing it a little over a couple of years now. But what has been the most difficult part? Yes, it's a lot of fun. Everything, all the work that you do is fantastic. But what is the most difficult part about really diving into something like this?
Wow. I think the hardest thing for me is that I've never run a business before in my life. So, this is jumping in head first into the deep end of the pool. I've always worked for somebody else. I've always been a hire, gun for hire, basically in the film industry. And I was fortunate enough to be, one of the people at the top of my game in Hollywood. I didn't have to look for work, and I worked with a lot of really, really great people, and it's a tough industry, really, really cutthroat, hard industry. There are a lot of not nice people in that business, as you can imagine. They're really, really out for themselves. So, you have to watch out. You have to protect yourself. And then coming into trying to do my own business, I certainly don't think of it that way as being a cutthroat thing. Maybe I'm just being naive. I don't know. So the hard things, there's like all the self-promotion and trying to meet people and networking. It's like, cold calling. You go to these networking events because you don't know anybody, and you're trying to get your name out there, trying to, show people what you do. And that's been really hard because I know a lot of people here, as opposed to on the West Coast or East Coast, the like New York or LA, people budget for, producing media, producing videos and things like that for their businesses. And here, people don't budget for it. I'm finding that
you have to convince them, say, hey, this is going to help you not only just now, but in the future.
Yeah, exactly. I know there was an article I read on Google about producing business videos and how it affects your SEO scores, your search engine optimization scores, that it can increase your Google search exposure anywhere from as low as 2.5 times over your competitors up to 2,500 times.
Wow.
Because
that's a big
wanna,
difference.
Yeah, it's huge. And
Wow.
people want to, anytime you do a Google search, anybody who does a Google search, if they see that there's a video, they're going to click on the video before they're going to click on a line of text. And then also the videos come up at the top of the page. You know, you're going to get paid things to come up there as well. But if you're not just somebody who's paying for your search to be at the top of the page, and you're just one of the masses of people who are being Google searched, you're not at the top of the page, but you produce a video under that subject, then yeah, you're going to be right up there at the top. People are going to click on that.
So walk us through the kind of direction that you like to go into when you're speaking to a client, if you can. It's kind of the group that we attend in Wake Forest is kind of an infomercial, the 30-second infomercial at the beginning of the segment.
It's your elevator pitch.
It's right. So walk us through that kind of conversation. For example, my wife is going to be potentially a new customer. Walk her through that of reason why you should do something like this.
Why you should have an elevator pitch?
Yeah. No, regarding why should I be hired?
Oh, okay. For my company in particular. So basically my pitch is always, that I produce these videos, but that my background from Hollywood, 31 years of camera experience in Hollywood, that my bar is extremely high. My level of acceptance of what is good quality is far and away above what I've seen. I don't know. I'm really into the storytelling and getting your message out and your company branding.
Sure. Do you usually show them like portfolios and examples?
I show them on my business card, the back are 2 QR codes. One is to my website and the other is to my YouTube channel, where I show them, post my sample videos of things I do. So.
Yeah.
Oh, for now, I got to go look that up.
I really feel like Nextdoor Radio needs to hire Apple Box.
Yeah, we need to. That's exactly right. I think, like I said, and you mentioned before, we don't buy everything that you see in this radio station. We didn't buy because we just knew what we were looking for. Let's be honest. There was a video that I watched not only to figure out how to use it, because you can look up on YouTube and it shows you how to fix a car.
Yeah,
let's be honest.
You can learn to do anything.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And so everything in here I bought because now I know how to use it. And it's going to help me down the road. And so, again, Applebox Media joins us here. Mr. Gary, by way of our local talk program, Trace Nod and Jamie Stout, of course, the phone line, 919-618-9258, brought to you by Little Caesars, home of the hot and ready pizza. You look at it as stuff like this, people don't realize how important it is to be able to get your name out there, to get your face out there, your brand. And so that's what I love about what you do. And based on your resume alone, going before you even opened Applebox Media, it's pretty awesome to be able to talk to you and meet you and learn everything that you've done. It's pretty cool.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And so if we can, I would love to go back to your Hollywood days regarding some stories.
Sure.
Right. I love stories. I love the history of stuff. What has been your most favorite along with the way, your favorite thing to do while attending in Hollywood?
Like my favorite type of project?
Yeah, movie, series, anything like that.
I think probably comedies. They're always the funnest to do.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of comedies. I did the first 5 Farrelly Brothers movies, starting with Dumb and Dumber, their very first film.
What?
Yeah, that was a great experience. Yeah. It was a road show. We basically started in Colorado. We started, oh boy, what was that town? There's a famous hotel that Stephen King wrote The Shining. He was staying there at the time. And I can't believe I'm forgetting the name of the hotel. But we actually had part of the crew stayed there, cast and crew stayed there, and then they couldn't hold all of us, so we had some of us stayed in a different hotel across the street. But shooting there was pretty spectacular. It's very classy, really pretty hotel. And but we started there, and then we moved along. That's actually where I think the movie the conclusion of the movie is there in front of that hotel, the Stanley Hotel.
There you go.
Yeah.
I figured you would realize what it was when you're walking out the door after the interview.
Right. And it's a very famous hotel there. And we then proceeded basically on the road. We moved to every little, tiny town you could imagine on the road on the way to Denver. And we shot all the stuff right there on the streets and roads because they're traveling across the country. And so every town we stopped in was a substitute for some place in the country. They're driving from Providence, Rhode Island, all the way to Aspen.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun. Jeff Daniels, Jim Carrey, they were great to work with. And everybody in that picture was great to work with.
Now I want to watch it again.
Yeah,
I know.
And it was an educational experience because the Farrelly brothers were learning how to direct a film. So that was pretty funny in and of itself.
Yeah.
Watching them learn. They would turn to the first AD and they say, "Do we say action now?" Yeah. Oh, action. And then how do I get them to stop? Say cut. Oh, yeah. Cut.
Well, I love that because it makes you realize, hey, not everybody is straight to the book. Not everybody is demanding and for example, Hollywood can be a very demanding situation. I mean, that's a fact.
Yeah.
But it's comforting to hear that not everybody is like that in Hollywood.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because I think if you're not from there and you're not, raised in that culture, it's amazing how quickly people adapt to that culture and become that way.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's pretty sad.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. People become Hollywood and it's, it's sad because you see people who probably were really nice people become really nasty, mean.
Yeah. It's sad.
Arrogant people.
That's so sad.
But
I've
I've
come
seen
to
it.
North Carolina and it's probably refreshing.
Yeah. Well, I can see where these people came from.
Yeah.
When they were nice.
Again, Apple Box Media here in our studio. Mr. Gary Juneau joins us here by way of our local talk here on Nextdoor Radio, nextdoorradio.com, and the Nextdoor Radio app. Anything else?
Oh gosh, I've enjoyed this very much meeting you. You are fascinating, talented, and we're grateful to have you in the community. So everybody definitely check out Applebox website. Check out Mr. Gary Juneau's YouTube, and he's got some example videos. And also check out his IMDb because it is impressive. You can definitely see how hard this guy has worked. 31 years, you said? 31 years. And this is also a great example of following your dream, doing what you love, but also balancing life and work. Because I know Hollywood,
it's pretty demanding.
Took a toll on the hours worked and family time. So
yeah.
But yeah, this has been so cool. I'm just fangirling over here.
Mr. Gary, so one more time, how can they get a hold of you? How can they find out more information about what you do and what you can offer?
Basically, everything's on the website. I lay it all out there, applebox-media.com. And I know people ask me about pricing and things like that, and that's a really hard thing to deal with. I know that I try to work within what people have as a budget, and if the budget is a low budget thing, anything less than $1,000 is pretty low budget. And I have to work within that, then the scope of the video has to kind of match what I can do within that budget. So that's the limiting factor.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
If the budget is enough, then I do things that I haven't seen other people do here. It's, I give them the full Hollywood treatment.
Sure.
I bring in a makeup and hair artist.
What?
Yeah, absolutely.
Really?
I want them to look good.
Yeah.
I have a full lighting package, cameras and things like that. It's really tailored to whatever the project is. And the hard thing is I can't lower my bar.
Yeah.
Sure.
You are listening to Nextdoor Radio on the Vanco Outdoor Equipment stream. Vanco Outdoor Equipment,